Welcome to Lifestyles of the Not Jet Set, the travel and tourism show that explores whether it's possible to preserve the sense of adventure that comes from jet setting without the actual jetting. My topic today is academic flying, because people in university communities wonder whether it's possible to substantially fly less and still accomplish the good that they do in the world. Today's episode is actually an example of a particular type of academic conference presentation, asynchronously and online, that I'll be giving to the Tyndall Center for Climate Research in Manchester, England. Here's how the conference presentation will go. Good morning, friends, in Manchester and around the world. Thank you for inviting me to this important workshop on academic mobility. Today's talk is about the International Academic Flying Less movement. More information is available on our website at flyingless.org, which has a petition and a frequently asked questions site that includes information about the emissions of different types of flying, of different types of transportation modes, and even alternatives to traditional flying conferencing that preserve much of the accomplishment and the sense of effectiveness and even fairness for people who are early career researchers or who live in other countries. I ask you to ignore the snowy background, which might be slightly eccentric, and ignore the informal business suit. All of the reason for this will become clear in due course. Our Academic Flying Less initiative has recently has participated in an article for the journal Lancet Planetary Health in collaboration with Joe Yates and Sunita Katyala at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. This article describes the experience of moving a conference that had been an in-person conference, an annual conference for several years in my own field of agriculture, nutrition, and health, which had to move online in 2020 due to the pandemic. We measured what happened to the carbon emissions from aviation, which of course plummeted, and also what happened to the participation, which increased substantially, suggesting that there may be less of a trade-off than one might think between participation and carbon emissions. For today's asynchronous conference presentation, I cannot see your faces as I usually would, but I anticipate some of you may be having the following thoughts. You think you're totally convinced about the carbon emissions of aviation and even perhaps convinced about the accessibility of online presentation, but you're wondering to yourself about how are we going to preserve the sense of interpersonal connection and what a drag the Zoom interface can be on a bad day. And even what is the loss of the sense of place that comes from online communication? It really is true that in online presentation, we lose some of the sense of delight in the sense of place that comes from the destination that we're traveling to. But I ask whether it's possible, with a little imagination and innovation, to communicate a little more of the sense of place of where the participants are coming from. And this brings us finally to the eccentric snowy setting and informal business suit, because my spouse and I this very weekend are in New Hampshire for a weekend of entertainment and mountain hiking. Over my shoulder, you can see Mount Monroe, which we hiked up yesterday. This was actually an exciting time for us because I've been completing the 48th of all of the mountains in New Hampshire that are 4,000 feet tall or higher, a list that people in New England do. The setting is more important than just that, though. We're here right now at the Mount Washington Hotel in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. And this hotel is important for a couple reasons connected to our topic. One is that during the 19th century, there were these wonderful grand hotels all over North America that invited thousands upon thousands of people from U.S. cities to see the great grand mountain settings all over the North American continent. But this particular hotel is more important than even just that. The conference of the Bretton Woods conference that was held here in July 1944 established the post-World War II international financial system, established the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. Imagine that particular month was just 1 month after D-Day and still substantially before the end of World War II. But envisioning the world that was to come, people gathered here. There was an important debate between the famous British economist John Maynard Keynes and the scrappy American Harry Dexter White, who came from humble beginnings in Boston, where I now live. And they debated different ways of designing whether finances should be on the gold standard or the dollar standard, and how the economy should work in a way that protected people from unemployment, the big concern of the time. Think about what is the potential for our conference today to tackle the challenges of our own time in the same way. As I was hiking along in the mountains, I found myself ruminating, as people who are walking do, on the question about whether it's possible for people in a democratic society voluntarily to make the social decisions that are needed in order to have our economy live within its planetary boundaries. As you reflect today on the exciting workshop in front of you, think about the challenges that we face in a time of climate crisis and ask yourself whether our university community can tackle the challenges of the economic challenges of our day with the same courage and conviction that people did back then. I hope you enjoyed the workshop today and feel a sense of accomplishment in the big challenge that you've undertaken.